All right, welcome to all of the lovely people of the chat to our late night Crash Bandicoot block at PACE Summer 2023. My name is 8VA Luigi, and I'll be doing the CTR run later. But first off, we have Rico KSB running Crash Twinsanity 100%. This is an awesome category, and I can't wait for you all to see what he has prepared for you.
Hello, I'm Rico, and this is going to be Crash Twinsanity 100%. This is the 5th game in the mainline Crash Bandicoot series. It's the sequel to Wrath of Cortex. Before we start, I kind of want to just show off this one trick that is not used in 100% and is used in any percent that I think will just be a perfect snapshot of exactly what you should expect from this run. So this is a giant acorn that I put conveniently between two chunks of this part of the world. And if I jump on it, it didn't work. Let me try that again. Put it right there. It just teleports me to the other side. So yeah, this game is extremely broken, and you should expect to see a lot of things like that in this run. So yeah, whenever it just loads back to the menu, we'll begin. And the goal of 100% is to get all 96 gems. There are 6 per level. And to beat the final boss, there are no other requirements, including breaking boxes, so you'll see that I will skip most of them, which is not normal for most Crash Bandicoot games. So this is a very different run from conventional Crash. But timing will start as soon as I hit continue, and I will go in 3, 2, 1, go. All right, so this is going to be the primary movement. It's just slide jumping. It's different from normal slide jumping in Crash games, where it's a bit more akin to like a long jump in Super Mario 64. And right here, I'm going to get my first gem, and then I'm just going to jump on this worm really high up, and then just death abuse. This game is a bit more open in its level design compared to regular Crash games. And because of that, there is a failsafe in the game where if you just fall for too long, the game will just automatically kill you. So I used that to just immediately warp back to the beginning of the run, and that is clearly Crash's sister Coco and not anybody else. So we will go follow her after I get this gem right here. I'm supposed to break all of these pillars as a puzzle to get this gem, but I can just jump here and then just do a spinning body slam to get some height right here and get that gem. This game did not have a lot of time to be tested, clearly.
There's a lot that you could say about this game as far as its differences from most conventional Crash Bandicoot games up to this point. But one thing about Twinsanity that I think is pretty unrivaled is the humor and how it continues on from just how great, some of the level titles were in Crash 3 and Wrath of Cortex. This takes it even a notch further with some top-notch voice acting.
Oh, for sure. So this is the tutorial level Jungle Mungle. I just skipped 2 unskippable cutscenes that are Crash's sister, obviously, Coco, telling me how to run and jump. And now she's going to teach me how to slide.
It's easy! Oh, too easy.
So you actually can skip this cutscene, but the setup for it is pretty tricky, and you only have 1 shot at it, so it's not really used that often in runs. And then right again here, I'm going to be bypassing some more puzzles to get these 2 gems. This first level is honestly like a really good indicator of just how much you can bypass in this run. For those who don't know, this game had a very troubled development. It was in development for about 3 years, and then in the last year, it just got completely reset. And they had 1 year to just scramble together everything they could. And honestly, with that in mind, I think this game came out way better than it ever deserved to. Even casually, I still think it is an amazingly fun game. So coming up here is another skip. This will skip a cutscene. This one does not like to cooperate, so hopefully I get it pretty quickly. Okay, third try is pretty good. But yeah, that skips a very long cutscene where you get taught how to bounce on worms. This Jungle Bungle is actually going really, really well so far. So I'm going to be using an exploit coming up here called the long jump, which I might not have enough time to explain right now, so I'll explain it in the next level. But if I do a slide jump here and then jump at the edge, I get an extra like boost in my jump. And then I'll explain it a bit more in depth when I get to it. So I'm going out of bounds here. This again skips a handful more cutscenes. And we are coming up to the first major roadblock in the run. It's a skip called Hover Skip. It is a very precise trick, and I only have one shot at it. If I mess it up, the game either soft locks or crashes. I do have a backup save if that happens.
Rico was telling me earlier before his run that he actually has 5 memory cards with backup saves on them.
I do, and honestly, I probably would have had more if I owned more.
Yeah. This game can be pretty prone to soft locks and crashes.
Oh, okay, yeah, that didn't work. Okay, yeah, I will load the first backup save here. I had the right positioning, but I don't think I got the height I needed. Oh, yeah, so this will load me right in front of the boss arena. So what this skip does is they had a feature where you're supposed to, at some point in the game, ride Cortex's hoverboard. Also, surprise, that's not actually Coco. That's Cortex, the villain of the series. And so they dummied it out because they didn't have time to finish it, and they just put it behind the boss arena out of bounds and made it invisible. But you can land on it and very, very difficultly guide it into the loading trigger or the cutscene trigger below the boss arena, and it just skips the boss and goes immediately into the next level. And it saves several minutes. But yeah, getting back up here is the hard part because this ramp does not like to cooperate. This game does not like when you land on things you're not supposed to. Okay, that was wrong. Yeah. Yeah, this is pretty par for the course with a resetless Twinsanity run. The game is very, very unforgiving. So you kind of just need a bunch of backups and to accept the fact that when you're doing it in a marathon, you're just going to lose a huge amount of time. For the longest time, this game was not even considered marathon safe, but I think it's been developed to the point where as long as you have backup saves, it should be fine. All right, we'll try this again. That one might work. It might have been a bit too far to the left.
Yeah, because it can trigger the little cutscene there
Okay,
and
yeah.
still not work, right?
Yeah, so that because they landed in the center there, that is a soft lock. I can't move from that spot. What I'm trying to do is I have to guide crash into the cutscene, but it has to be in a specific positioning where when the cutscene finishes, he's in bounds. If he's out of bounds, then it'll just put me in the center there where you can't move. And also, if Cortex moves too far from his spot, like if Crash is just like way far away from him, the game can crash. So yeah, this is a very common reset point in the run. I do also have a backup save at the very start of this next level, so if I give this like a couple more tries and I'm still not getting it, I'll just load immediately into the next level. But yeah, for clarification, my estimate is 130 and my PB is 112.23, so that's kind of just an indicator of how much time you can lose in this run. It's a very, very cool run. It's a very rewarding one, but it is extremely difficult. I don't know about this one. Yeah, that was... I think if I had landed on the hoverboard, I would have definitely not gotten it, so I kind of just panicked and just jumped away from it. All right, yeah. This little ledge doesn't like to cooperate sometimes. That one should work. All right, nice. Yeah, we got it. All right, that is the hover out of the way, and that just skipped an entire boss fight. All right, so this next level is Cavern Catastrophe. This is probably the least functional level in the game by a considerable amount. But it's very akin to the roller, or like the ball levels from the Wrath of Cortex, except instead of being in a giant hamster ball, you're just crashing Cortex and they're fighting each other. So the previous boss fight was supposed to be a fight with Cortex, and after you win, Cortex just gets so fed up with constantly losing that he just just running tackles Crash, and then you just control both of them fighting each other. Alright, so I'm gonna try and move quick enough to catch a cycle in the next portion of the level, which it's not too hard to catch on PS2, so I should be fine with it. One thing I'd note that I need to be really careful about in this game is that TNTs and Nitros auto-kill you regardless of masks, which they did just to make it so you couldn't cheese puzzles with them. But because of that, like just standard nitro crates that are hazards are very, very dangerous. Oh yeah, so I caught this cycle. This cycle is a lot harder to catch on Xbox, and I'll explain the differences between PS2 and Xbox a bit later in the run. Oh yeah, but this next section, I'm going to play a bit safer than I normally do, just because it is very easy to either lose a lot of time or like lock myself out of a crate, or out of a gem rather. Alright, so this is a very, very finicky gem to get. Sometimes these arrow crates just... Okay, I just missed completely. Yeah, that is a good example of just the physics not really being kind in this level. Alright, we'll try it again.
Thankfully, that checkpoint is pretty close.
Yeah. Yeah, if I had gone like a bit further, then it would have been like a lot higher risk to die. Unfortunately, on the respawn, this cycle is a lot worse, so it is still a pretty significant time loss. But this is kind of a level where any mistake is just very costly, and sometimes the mistakes are just like beyond your control. So this next cogwheel section I'm going to take way safer than I normally do in a run, because the purple gem here, if I mess up my movement, I just cannot get it, and I would have to reset the level, or I would probably just load a backup save that has it, that way I don't have to do all the Cavern Catastrophe again. Alright, should be good. So normally I would just go immediately to the left and I can fall back down through that gap in the wall. And it's way faster than doing this, but by doing that I would skip this checkpoint, and if I die in this upcoming mob fight, I would go all the way back to that checkpoint at the elevator, which is a gigantic time loss. So I'd rather not do that.
Well. A power crystal.
So this is the first of 12 crystals in the run. Crystals do absolutely nothing for you in terms of percentage, and I will actually skip 4 of them. So yeah, this is the introduction to the primary like mook enemy of this game, which are the ants. The plot of this game, which we will not see a huge amount in the run, is that the Earth gets invaded by these 2 interdimensional parrots called the Evil Twins, and they have a vendetta against Cortex. So they're just planning on destroying Insanity Island and also just taking revenge on them.
Yes.
So Crash and Cortex team up to stop them. And this is going to be the first section where we play as Crash and Cortex together.
Keep back, you weak-minded fool. Avert your gaze or you'll go crystal crazy.
Alright, so you can see how slowly you move when you have Crash and Cortex together. So most of the time, I'm just going to like grab Cortex and immediately throw him. It's just way faster. Alright, so here I'm going to do another long jump. So I kind of touched upon this in Jungle Bungle, but if you do a slide jump, and your next jump is at an edge, then that jump will carry over the momentum of the slide jump. And you can make so many jumps that you're not normally supposed to be able to do. So that will be an integral part of the entire run, really. Another thing to touch upon, one thing that people really remember about this game is the humor and the dialogue, like AVA said. Another thing people remember is the soundtrack. This soundtrack is 100% a cappella. And it's definitely like one of the most unique soundtracks, if not the most unique that I've ever heard in any game ever.
Yeah, there's a great mix from the band Spiral Mouth, the a cappella group, who recorded this. There's a great mix between original music that they composed as well as their own versions of some classical themes. So you might hear like the Blue Danube by Strauss or the Mendelssohn Hebrides Overture, which are all like brought together in a cool like pop disco kind of feeling. And it's like, it's crazy, it's so good. It's also in the game Crash Tag Team Racing, but I would rather not talk about that game at all.
Very fair. So right there, I did a thing where I spun and threw Cortex on the same time that I triggered that cutscene, and it let me move in the cutscene, which just saved a little bit of time. And then right here, I'm going to pause really quickly. That just makes this section load a little faster. If you reach a loading chunk before it's finished loading, Crash just kind of flops down and that loses you time. And the game loads faster when it's paused, so I just paused for about half a second there and then finish loading. So here we're gonna just cheese a bit more gems to just avoid their puzzles, land on a tree that I'm clearly not supposed to land on, and then just hit this. Alright, so we're coming up to the next level, which is Totem Hokum. This is a multi-part level where you do kind of like something different in 3 different chunks of it. And the first chunk is going to be, it's supposed to be an escort mission where Cortex is asking you for your help to take out the evil twins, and then he is talking about how he like envies the simple life of the natives on the island and living with Mother Nature, and then he gets attacked by a swarm of bees, and you have to like guide him from, you know, running into hazards while he's being attacked by a swarm of bees. But we're not going to do that because guiding him is very slow. So I'm just going to jump out of bounds over here. And then just kind of go around there. This dodges the cutscene trigger to start the escort mission. And I'm going to grab Cortex. This is extremely important for a trick I'm going to do for the remainder of this hub and the first bit of the next hub. But yeah, so at this point, I'm supposed to be guiding Cortex through all of these death traps that are just here for some reason. But clearly it is much faster to not do that. This can be a very tricky part and very punishing to die in because I'll go back to the beginning of the chase if I do. So we'll definitely try to be very careful here. I'll do a long jump to get this gem, hopefully. It did work, but I doubted my movement, so I kind of panicked at the last second, but it's fine. I did not die, that is what matters. Also, going on the Spiral Mouse take on classical music, this is Flight of the Bumblebee. Alright, so we're coming up to the end of the escort mission, and I'm going to grab this checkpoint and immediately death abuse. When you grab Cortex, you are latched onto him until like something latches him off of you. So when I respawn, I have Cortex with me. I'm going to throw him into the cutscene trigger and die at the same time. And this triggers a zombie glitch. So now the game thinks I'm dead, and the only things that can kill me are falling from a very high height or being seen by a watchtower enemy in this upcoming section. This is really useful, but also very risky. If I fall into a hole or like get caught and die, if I fall into a hole, the game soft locks and I'm just out of luck. But if I die at any point, the game will try to respawn me with Cortex, which it cannot do right now, so the game will crash. Again, I do have backup saves for that, but if it happens, I won't have zombie, which means I won't be able to do this level or the next one the way I want to, so I'm going to try and be very careful here. All right, so I'm going to wait for this watchtower to start looking. As long as you're not in their range when they start looking, you can go through the area without like being seen by them. But if you're in their range and they start looking, if they see you at any point, you get caught and you die. But yeah, the zombie glitch is very useful here because I can just go through this water without drowning. And I can hit these nitros, which I didn't in that case, but you can hit nitros without dying. All right, so I'm coming up to a skip here called Village Skip. It skips the cutscene at the start of this village and lets you get the 2 gems in the village a lot quicker. It's really awful, and I don't like it. But that was not bad. It saves about like 10 to 12 seconds, which isn't a lot for how hard it is. But I honestly think the alternative method to get these gems fast is also not particularly great, so I kind of just decided I'll just take the method that's faster. The other thing that can get me out of zombie, which is how I am going to get out of zombie when I need to, is by picking up a mask. So the way this game does death is that death in the game's coding is considered having -1 masks. So that's what I have right now. If I pick up a mask, I go down to 0 masks, which means I'm alive. And that'll be how we get out of this. All right, yeah, so I flopped there to get back in bounds. I jumped way too early. That was very, very risky. Yeah, so I'm going to take this chase section very, very carefully.
Yeah, because even though you're a bit further along, taking a death by falling into a pit would still crash the game, right?
It would soft lock in this case because I wouldn't be able to die, but I also wouldn't be able to get out.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, there's a specific point where I'll be able to die and not crash the game, but it's pretty far into the next hub. But yeah, here's another example of the zombie where I can just do that. I'm going to pick up some lives here just to be safe. Depending on how the run goes, I can become very low on lives later in the run, and that can be very dangerous because game overing in the wrong spot can be quite bad. So I'm skipping a cutscene here and a little mini game where you do like whack-a-mole but with worms. So I'm going to try to skip here and hopefully I get it. Okay, I did. That skip is not hard. It does skip this, which is the second boss in the game. It's not a hard skip, but you only really have one shot at it, and if you mess it up, I essentially have to load a backup at that point because I can't die in the boss fight because I'm in zombie. But if I beat the boss, then Cortex detaches from me, which I also don't want. So, but yeah, that is hub 1. And there are 4 hubs in this game, so we're about 25% of the way through the run. So I'm gonna pause here again, also to make sure I have the gems. I pause for about 8 seconds to give the game time to load. So something to note with the pausing to load is that you only really have to do that on PS2. On Xbox, if you play Xbox on disc, you only have to pause for like a few seconds, and if you play it on hard drive, you don't have to pause at all. And Xbox is overall the faster version of the game because it does load faster, and my PB is on Xbox, but the PS2 version is a lot safer for marathons because it's a lot more stable, and I can just have as many memory cards as I feel like I need, whereas on Xbox, without soft modding, I only have 4 save slots to work with, and that's just not enough to be safe in a marathon.
Are there some other particularly game-breaking points of the Xbox version that make it even more risky for marathons?
Yes, there is a skip towards the end of the next level that if you mess it up on Xbox and are forced to watch a cutscene that you're otherwise trying to skip, when you reach the end of the level, it crashes every time. And I have almost had a run, like a resetless run I was doing, get ruined because of that. So that is definitely another point in favor of playing on PS2. That aside, along with the console version I'm playing, I'm also playing the PAL version of the game. The region you play for this game doesn't really matter, but the frame rate does. When the game is running at 60 frames per second, there's a bug called the slide glitch, where if you do a slide and then like your camera shifts, there's a chance that Crash will just fly in a direction that's different from the one you input, and that can make a lot of the more precise movement very, very aggravating to do. Whereas if you play the game at 50 frames per second, which is only possible with PAL PS2 or any Xbox version played on a PAL console, you just don't get the slide glitch at all. So most runners just play on either the PAL version of the game or the NTSC Xbox version played on a PAL console because the Xbox version is region free. So I just grabbed that mask. That takes me out of zombie, but I still can't die or the game will crash for a bit longer. But it is important that I get out of zombie because while you're in zombie, you can't break normal checkpoints. And I do need to break a normal one coming up here. So this level is ice climb, and I keep doing these like jumps out of bounds. You see all this really cool like platforming and level design. I just skipped all of it. And then coming up here, I'm going to do another out of bounds trick. This is going to skip both a very funny cutscene where Cortex argues with some penguins about a bounced check. But also it's going to skip a gigantic chunk of the level. But the jump coming up here is very risky because if I do fail it, then the game will crash. And my last save point was at ice climb, so the backup save will be at ice climb. All right. I had to walk into a specific loading chunk there to make sure this section loaded, and I went for an audio cue to make sure I saw it, or I got it. Alright, so the other key thing that made Zombie really useful is the fact that this whole time Cortex has been attached to me. So the next checkpoint I break is one that you can respawn with Cortex. So I'm going to break the checkpoint, and then I'm going to go for 2 gems, and then when I death abuse, I will have Cortex with me. And then these 2 bats are the final thing, like stopping me from getting to the checkpoint. Okay, I've broken this checkpoint, so I'm safe. I can die at this point, and the game will not crash, so we are good now. All right, so this jump is really, really precise, so hopefully I get it first try. Nice.
Let's go.
So I did a controllable slide jump there. If you slide jump off an edge and it's not a long jump, you can kind of control your slide jump in the air. Awesome, I got that first try. So that's fast bat. That is the newest trick we implemented into the run, I believe. And it just skips going around that entire area to get back up here. So we're coming up on another boss skip. This is going to skip the boss fight with Uka Uka. You just kind of hold the camera up and then just walk right through. So this fight is actually really short, but the 2 cutscenes before and after it are very long, and you can't skip cutscenes unless they're FMVs. Oh, I missed. Yeah, so I'm trying to time my Cortex throw with the position of this N. Okay, that one should work. That might work. I'll try it. The N has to be anywhere between 0 and 90-degree angle, and this looks like it's like 1 degree, so it technically should work. But yeah, I need to get a long jump here, which Crash is not letting me get. There we go. And then I have to walk to as far or close to the edge of this as I can. And then we jump. Nice. All right. And then I'm going to break the checkpoint in Death Abuse to get Cortex back with me, because I'm about to attempt what might be, if it's not the hardest trick in the run, it is definitely one of the hardest. So this is a trick called Ride and Slide, and basically I'm going to scale the side of the mountain and just skip going to Cortex's lab entirely. It saves about 45 seconds, but it is incredibly difficult because the mountain side is a pixel wide. And if I die here, I lose a huge amount of time because I get a loading screen. But yeah, I stand in a specific spot, and then I body slam on top of Cortex, and then I jump off him. You're not supposed to be able to jump off of Cortex, but if you jump like right as you're walking off of him, you can get a good jump out. And these animations can be very aggravating to deal with. All right, there we go. And then I'll jump here to get this section of the mountain loaded in. Here. And then we go for a jump. Nice. All right, this part of the mountain is very unstable. I pause there to get this door to load faster. If I try to jump past that door after it loads, there is a very high chance that the game will crash just because the memory is overloaded. If I die in this out-of-bounds section, the game also can crash. Probably will crash if I die. All right, so I'm going to go for another cutscene skip here. All right. This is the cutscene skip that I mentioned that if you fail it and then you finish the next level, the game crashes on the Xbox version. So that was another reason for me to choosing to play on PS2. But yeah, that skipped a cutscene that begins this level, which is Slip Slide Ice Capades. This is very infamously a level with a lot of very awful gems, including this first one up here. All right, I got it. If you miss that gem, it takes so long to Death Abuse to try it again that it oftentimes just kills the run. And then there are also 2 gems in this level that if I miss them, okay, I got knocked by the cogwheel into the hole. But yeah, there's also 2 gems in this level where if I miss them, I can't Death Abuse before hitting another checkpoint, so I would have to restart the whole level to get them. If that happens, I'll just like keep going and load a backup save that has the gems just because it's not worth doing the entire level again. But yeah, this is a very notorious run killer of a level.
That whole series of sequence breaks that you were doing right before this Slip Slide Ice Capades was just so emblematic of Twinsanity as a whole. All of those like respawning and despawning pieces of texture and just the fact that you can't really jump off of Cortex, but all bets are off considering what is actually around you in the level.
Yeah. Like I said, this game is extremely broken, and the run is very, very entertaining as a result. For context as to why Crash is using Cortex as a snowboard, they're trying to get to Engine's battleship to get another crystal, and they need to get there before Engine sets sail, and they're like, how do we get there? And Crash just kicks him off the ledge of the balcony and just uses him as a snowboard. All right, so coming up is probably the funniest cutscene in the entire game. I'm just going to let it play out.
Coming through! Ladies? Excuse me, madam. Are those real? Mother?
Beautiful. We found a way to skip that, but why would you? All right, so this is the first gem that I can't miss. I did not miss it. That's good. That one's pretty easy. The next one can be a bit rougher, but it's going to be the gem after the next one. So I hit this trigger to trigger the sled or the ramp coming up here. I get this clear gem. So this next yellow gem, if I miss it, I can't go back and get it. So hopefully I don't miss it.
Just don't miss it. Forehead.
Nailed it. That is a terrifying gem because it is positioned in a way that's just really annoying to hit. So that is always like a nail biter of a gem, and I'm really glad I got it. All right, so this last gem is pretty easy, but I did miss it in practice earlier. Not this time though. All right, yeah, and that is probably one of the scariest levels out of the way. And right after that, we have probably, I think it's unquestionably the longest level in the run. This next level, like when I have actual splits with me, it encompasses 1.5 entire splits because it's just that long of a level.
Treasure, Bonza.
That is the only time we're going to see Dingodile in this run, by the way. Yeah, so this level is High Seas Hijinks. It is, casually, it's very notorious for being very save point starved. Like I said, it's probably the longest level in the game, and if you game over in it, you go back to the very beginning of it. Yeah, so I'm going to grab this blue gem and just Death Abuse because it's faster to just respawn at the checkpoint than turn around. And there's a cycle in like 3 rooms from now that I'm going to catch. I probably won't because I'm very bad at it. I'm definitely not catching it now. I was trying to avoid that cutscene. When I walked to the left, it closed the door so I could get to the other side without hitting this cutscene trigger, and I messed it up. So we got to see Engine raise his fist and be like, "You rotten kids."
Any moments of time with Engine are good ones.
Well, except for the fight coming up. But.
That's true. And if you want to hear even more of Rico's opinions on Crash Bandicoot boss fights, please subscribe to youtube.com/Rico_KSB.
It's actually no underscore on YouTube because I couldn't put one in the URL.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is the room where I was trying to catch the cycle. Because I watched the engine cutscene, I'm definitely not catching it. But you can catch this, like, rotor before it goes up. This is probably the worst room in the game. You have to do so much for 1 gem. I especially messed it up because I don't have a long jump stored. So yeah, we're just going to take this really slow. Another thing of note is that this is probably the one room where Xbox actually loses time compared to the PS2. Just because the cycle is so much harder to catch. I'm convinced you have to be like literally perfect to get it. I've been told that you can get it with good movement, but I've never been even close to getting it, so it's probably not worth it. It's like you lose about 12 seconds on Xbox for not getting it, and that definitely is not like anywhere close to the time Xbox saves with loads. I think it's estimated that Xbox saves about a minute with loads, and then when you factor in the time loss in this level, it's still close to like 45, 48 seconds of time save on Xbox's part. And then there is also a cycle in Cavern that's harder to catch, but if you do catch it, then you actually save time compared to PS2. So like it's hard to gauge how much Xbox actually saves, but it's somewhere in the realm of like 35 seconds to a minute, depending on like what you get. So that's the bulk of High Seas. So we're going to have a boss fight, a chase sequence, and another boss fight to finish out this level. So like I said, this level is really long. All right, yeah, so this is a boss fight with Engine. Engine is known for series-wide just having some incredible boss fights. This is not one of them. Also, this is the 4th boss fight in the game, and it's the first one we're actually doing in the run. Yeah, so this is literally all that happens in this fight. If there's any like donations or messages that you can give off, go for it.
All right, I give a couple of donations that have come in. We have $100 from Jamie the Bunny, who says, donating to bless this run. It's twins, so I'm sure we'll need as many blessings as we can get.
Thank you, Jamie.
And we have Dear Chomp with $20 saying, glad to see twins at another marathon. Although I'm not sure why you're playing on PS2, since we both know that the Xbox 360 backwards compatibility is quite possibly the definitive way to play Crash Twinsanity, aside from emulation. Good luck, Rico.
That is an inside joke that we heard that in an intro on some YouTube video. The 360 version of the game, which is just like the Xbox version played on a 360, is horrible. It is super laggy and the frame rate drops into the single digits. It is borderline unplayable. Yeah, so that was a boss fight of all time. So we're coming up to, I would argue, the hardest chase sequence in any Crash game. The amount of rubber banding this walrus does is crazy. So I'm just going to try to get the hell away from him. Also, a thing with the slide jump in this game is that it's very committal. Like, once you do it, you can't stop. So a lot of times you'll just see me just running, and I already messed up. Yeah, this chase is very hard.
It's also nice to see, like, this sort of linear corridor progression system is what you would more, like, readily expect of a Crash Bandicoot game of this era. And while Twins does kind of steer away from it a little bit, it's always nice to kind of see, you know, a kind of call back to what this game series was all about in the first place.
Yeah, I see a very common misconception that Twins is a open world Crash game, and there are some parts that are. The 4 hubs are very, very open-ended, but your progression in the game is still very linear. You're still going from one level to the next with not much variation, and the levels themselves, while again more open than the PS1 games and Wrath of Cortex, are still pretty tunnel-like. There's still like a defined point A and point B that you're trying to hit. But it definitely did try to be a bit more open than previous Crash games. I'm taking this a bit safe because I did already die. All right. So we walk into this field of TNTs because what else would you do with a bunch of TNTs but put them in one spot? And I just wanted to point out that Engine was falling that entire time.
It's kind of like from Crash 2 to Crash 3 with Cortex's space station.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is a joint boss fight with Entropy and Brio. It is also not very interesting, so this is another good opportunity to just any donations or messages you have. This is probably the one like notable down point in the run. So in this section, first off, Entropy drops down into T-pose. And these ice platforms are supposed to sink, but if you just constantly spin and jump, they never do, so I can just do this. Also, Entropy's tuning fork doesn't actually hurt you, so like I don't actually have to worry about anything in this fight, aside from there was one time I phased through the floor, and that's probably the biggest threat here. Also, people tell me that Brio's shadow here looks like a Geodude. I honestly think it looks more like a fat golden snitch.
Or like a big Wingle.
Oh, true, yeah.
Shout out to Wingle. Shout out to Pelipper.
Pretty base Pokemon. Oh, yep. There we go. Now, on the rare occasion that I actually do die in this fight, it actually becomes longer on the second attempt because it takes longer for Brio to jump out of the water. So I'm going to try and not do that. Oh, that's bad. So Entropy's tuning fork can't hurt me, but it can force me onto the ground, which happened twice there, which was terrifying. And that was High Seas Hijinks. It was a very long level. So we're back at the Iceberg Lab. And on my first pass through here, I got 3 gems with Zombie, so I need to get the remaining 3. So I'm going to get this first gem up here, which is a blue gem. And it's surrounded by this just box of nitros that I'm just going to do that for. And then there's another gem down here. It's the red gem. There is a trick called platform descent, where when you're at the top of the lab, you just exploit a falling platform to just make it so you don't get the auto death trigger, and then you just drop down and get this gem from the top of the lab. It saves about 5 seconds, and it's the worst thing ever, and nobody should do it. All right, so I'm gonna skip a cutscene that I skipped on the first pass with Zombie. I'm gonna try to skip it, I guess is the better way to phrase this. I did not. The cutscene trigger for that cutscene is gigantic. So I had to get like a very specific long jump and just jump around the cutscene trigger, and it's pretty annoying. But this cutscene is like 40 seconds long, so it is a very good time save when you do get it. And also in all levels and any % no dimension skip, you have to skip this cutscene twice. So that's another nice thing about Zombie in 100% is that it makes it so you only have to skip it once. Cortex just phases out of existence there. Alright, so this yellow gem is the last gem in the level. I messed that up. Let's try that again. There we go. 14 lives is definitely more than enough, so I'm good. Fortunately, I have not had too many things go wrong in this run, which is basically more than you could ever ask for with Twinsanity.
If you had broken all of those crates and then like somehow failed to get that yellow gem, would you have had to death abuse?
No, there is a backup where I could use the scenery to hit it.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
Classic Crash Bandicoot,
Yep.
jumping off scenery.
Yep. So I paused there again to make this open faster. And this is the one cutscene with the best character in the series.
My crystals!
The humor in this game is top-notch.
Ruined, thanks to Perky here. Must be repaired, and only one person can help. My niece, Nina Cortex. Isn't she delightful? Obviously, I've made a few modifications here and there. Quickly, to my private dirigible. Set a course for Madame Amberley's Academy of Evil.
All right, so for those who might be a little lost with the plot at this point, for one, that's completely fair. Also, side note, Cortex is in his keyboard right now. But yeah, so the reason they're grabbing crystals is because they're trying to power up Cortex's machine called the Psychotron, which will let them go to the 10th dimension, which is where the evil twins are from. And Coco, thinking that Cortex kidnapped Crash, kicks him into his crystals and then accidentally damages the machine. So they're going to the Academy of Evil now to get Cortex's niece, Nina, to come fix it. And that will be the 3rd hub. And off we go.
After we get Coco unstuck, she will be in a ready position to drive a go-kart for around 55 minutes. As the next part of this marathon.
Yeah, so this section is a bit of a preview to playing as Cortex by himself. We're not going to do that too often. All right. So before I do anything in the Academy of Evil, I'm going to get 5 of the 6 gems in this hub. The 6th one I cannot get until I'm about to leave. It's that one right there. It's just impossible to get on the first pass. Again, just bypassing these puzzles. That was the weakest soccer ball kick I have ever seen. Like, I'm pretty sure I could do better than that, like in real life, and I am not an athletic person.
Does that spin always kick the
that-
soccer ball so weakly?
No,
or-
it usually like sends it flying. Yeah, so I messed up my out of bounds trickery I was doing there. I'm also specifically doing this level in a certain way because it's going to be very important for the next level. So we'll try this again. Go out of bounds here. The camera does not like to be friendly here. Come on. Oh, okay. Yeah, I can work with that. Okay. Yeah, so this is a very thin line I'm jumping along. And then I'm going to jump on this door frame, which hits that exclamation crate. I'm going to hit a nitro detonator there. And then I'm going to... You can see Cortex's airship out of bounds below the academy. I'm trying to hit another exclamation crate here. It's not working. Hold on. Let me reposition myself. Okay, this one's not usually that bad. All right, one more time. There we go. All right, so this is the level Classroom Chaos. I'm not supposed to be here yet. That was a sequence break into a level. But it is important that I got the save point there. And we will be coming back to that level. But first, I'm going to get this last gem over here. That rat deserved it. I don't know why, but he was in my way. He knows what he did. All right.
Ah, yes. The old alma mater. As a former student myself, I'm well acquainted with the many secrets this institution holds.
Yeah, so this next level is Boiler Room Doom, and it opens up with quite possibly the most punishing jump in the entire run. If I miss it, it's like at least a minute and a half lost. And if I accidentally hit the save point checkpoint at the start, that's a run over. So I would have to load a backup save, which I do have. So as you can tell, this level is just buckets of fun. So I'm going to jump here, and I want to avoid the trigger for that world checkpoint. Well, I didn't hit the world checkpoint, so that's a slight positive, but I also failed the jump, so we're going to watch this loading screen. This loading screen is probably the single biggest time save Xbox has over PS2, because this is like a 22, 25 second load screen on PS2, and it's like a 3-second load on Xbox.
Good old RTA timing.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Twinsanity is a game where like loadless timing doesn't really work because most of the loading is dynamically in the background. So yeah, it is unfortunate that Xbox saves so much time, but there isn't really a feasible solution. Even if you were to make it so that like that loading screen didn't count, Xbox would still have a big advantage.
Right, and a lot of the loads that you would pause to speed up, you know, you could probably make an argument that, you know, that does take a little bit of extra added knowledge.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You have to know like for how long to pause. And,
Yeah.
like it's not like a hard like amount every time, so it's not as simple as just removing it. All right, we're gonna try this again. Hopefully I get it. Nope. Yeah, this is in a practice run I did a few days ago. This was probably the single spot where I lost the most time. And even then, I still made it within my estimate. I was very generous with the estimate just because I knew how this jump and many other things in this game can be. And considering how well most of the rest of the run has gone, I think we'll be fine. But yeah. Yeah, so for context, that door to Classroom Chaos is supposed to open when you beat Boiler Room.
Ah, yes. The old alma mater.
But we do get to see Cortex constantly talk about his old alma mater.
This institution holds.
And we also just like to get to see him eat dirt every time.
Yeah. We all have that one friend, or did at one point, who peaked in high school, and we get to experience that 3 times over with Cortex here.
The funny thing is that, contrary to Cortex's memory, the flashbacks in the FMV cutscene we skip show that he was not the most popular kid at the academy. We'll try this again. Okay, good. I don't really have a backup of sorts for this one because you can't really make one, so I kind of just had to keep doing that until I got it. All right, so this is another instance of zombie, and we're going to carry this for the entirety of this level.
I'm stuck.
Also, I'm just going to let this cutscene play.
Scientist in the world. Stuck in a pipe. How could things get any worse?
Twinsanity did the impossible and made a fart joke funny. Alright, so again, I am in zombie, so I cannot die, except for from falling from a really high height, because there are no Watchtower tribesmen in this level, shockingly enough. That makes it so that you can do a lot of really cool things in this level. It also makes it so that if I die at any point, I'm losing like 5 minutes. Oh my, did I actually get that? That's crazy. So I got a snipe with the Wumpa fruit that I spun that hit the trigger to make these platforms pop up earlier. So that just saves like a couple seconds because I don't have to wait for them to pop up once Cortex lands here.
That's an incredibly niche strat.
Yeah, it's a pretty new one. It was discovered like a few months ago. And like it's just kind of like you go for it, and if you get it, cool. If not, whatever. I'm a little surprised I got that.
You've gotten that and Fast Bat, right?
Yeah, Fast Bat's not too bad. Fast Bat has a bit of a reputation of being a really garbage strat, but there is a setup for it that G-Pro found that it makes it pretty consistent. It's still a bit on the precise side, and I don't get it all the time. But overall, it's definitely pretty viable.
Yeah, it's just cool to be seeing like some new strats in Twins.
It is great that this run is still evolving, despite like how much it has developed over the like nearly 2 decades it's been a game. Alright, yeah. So I pushed Cortex through that little like slot, and it took him out of the pipe, which is very important for this next portion of the level. I'm being very careful with this because, again, any mistake is going to cost me several minutes. Right. I'm going to take this section a little slow. I have been told in the past that if you go into the next section without Cortex, the game can crash. I have never seen it before in my life, but now would be a great first time to actually have it happen. Again, Zombie makes traversing a lot of these hazards much easier. Alright, so in the next room after this, there is a trick called Pipe OOB that I would normally do in an attempt, because it is faster than anything else by like a minute. I'm just going to play this safe. My movement is not great here. I'm not going to do it in this attempt because it is just very, very risky. If I just miss it and die, I leave the level without 2 gems and lose like 5+ minutes. So I'm going to do another strat that is about a minute slower, but a lot safer. Yeah, that is the one trick that I just straight up do not feel comfortable doing in a marathon run.
Well, and being a minute slower is probably better than losing 5.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so yeah, I did what is called a twin jump off of Cortex's head there. And then I'm just gonna have to do this puzzle. The Pipe OOB would let me skip this entire puzzle. But we're just gonna have to play it out. So there's one more gem in this level, and after I get the gem, the reason for Zombie will be quite apparent. Well, probably after I explain it, but...
It's interesting how like present the zombie state is in Twinsanity. There are like zombie states in other games from this era, like Spyro 3, but it isn't used for that long.
Yeah, whereas like there's 2 or 3 whole levels in this game that use it. There's actually an entire different route that makes extensive use of it, but it is way, way more punishing, and nobody really uses the route, but it is faster on Xbox. Yeah, so I grabbed that yellow gem and I immediately death abused. I have every gem in the level, so I could just leave it. And by doing this, I'm going to respawn at the start of Classroom Chaos, and that skips a 5-minute boss fight with Dingodile. So in the 100% run, you technically never beat Boiler. And that's actually what makes Boiler the biggest difference between 100% in all levels is that in all levels you have to beat Boiler, so you actually have to fight Dingodile. But yeah. From that point on, most of the terrifying things in the run are out of the way. It's not to say the remainder of the run is easy, but comparatively, there's like much less risk of me just killing a run immediately and having to load it back up. So those hall monitors are similar to the Watchtower tribesmen from the river, but you can actually just slide jump fast enough to get past them before they ever like see you. But yeah, that was why it was very important that I got the save point in Classroom Chaos before I went into Boiler, and also why it was very important that I didn't break any checkpoint in Boiler, which was what Zombie let me do. So this library is possibly the coolest room in the game from a platforming perspective. That was terrible, but I got it anyway, except not really. Let's try that again. There we go. You just do a lot of really cool sequence breaking in this level, or in this room. Let's jump around here. Nice. Didn't get that, so we'll just do it back up here. Yeah, so we were supposed to like just spiral up the entire library, and we just kind of broke through all of that. All right, so that's the first part of Classroom Chaos. The second part is supposed to be a Cortex section. Cortex is extremely slow, and I just kind of don't really want to play as him, so I'm not going to. So if I jump over this, that's the cutscene trigger that switches to Cortex, and then I just land here, and we are out of bounds in the Cortex section as Crash. So you're going to see prompts at the bottom of the screen that are telling you how to play as Cortex, and they have no relevance whatsoever.
You know, obviously we're skipping a lot of the intended platforming, but it's like we have our own micro situation where, like, this is the new platforming.
Yeah, it's like we skip a bunch of stuff, and as a result, we somehow just make the game even harder. This is a very, very brutal run. I want to say overall it's the hardest speedrun I've ever learned. Alright, so I'm gonna just fall back in bounds there, because I need to get this gem here. In all levels, you can actually complete this entire section of the level out of bounds, but you have to go back in bounds in 100% to get some gems. It's also very easy to get stuck on certain parts of the roof. So we get back out of bounds here, and as if Twinsanity didn't have enough things already in the speedrun, that was a wrong warp, so I just skipped an entire chunk of the level.
You know, there's some parts of the game where you can kind of feel like the game doesn't want you to be there necessarily, but then you get here and it's like, well, that's where you're wrong, kiddo. Yeah. And it's like, you know, we think that we've come up with these solutions for people not to, you know, abuse the boundaries of the game, and us speedrunners are a bit persistent.
12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24. We should be good now. Maybe one more. There we go, yeah. You have to kill like somewhere in the range of like 24 to 26 frogs for the door to open. Yeah, that is Classroom Chaos. Fun fact, this level has 2 crystals and only one of them counts. But yeah, we are coming up to the next level, which is Rooftop Rampage. This is the one level where you play as Nina. She is definitely a lot more straightforward than Crash in her movement. So this is kind of a bit of a break in the run. Even then, though, it's still not like a completely easy level. It is pretty easy to lose some time in it if you're not careful. Also, Cortex is supposed to be in this cutscene, so that's why it looks really weird. But he's supposed to be talking to her, but we didn't play as Cortex, so he's not here. Alright, so yeah, Nina is very basic. She just runs and spins and punches. Walking outdoors just broke the world checkpoint all the way over there, so I just death abused to just get there faster. Coming up to another pretty funny cutscene here.
My airship! Without it, we're stranded! Tie it to something secure, I said. Hurry, Nina, or you'll miss the bus!
Yeah, so when you're supposed to switch over the Cortex, the cutscene where that happens, he tells Crash to go back to the airship and make sure that it's like properly secured. And Crash, in his infinite wisdom, ties it to a school bus. So in this level, Nina's just trying to reach the airship before it flies away. Also, like as far as like the a cappella soundtrack goes, this song has to be like one of the most impressive.
Yeah, just those drum sounds that are like purely created by human voices are just incredible.
Yeah. I think they did do some synthesizing, but it doesn't really make it any less impressive. Still good on lives. 11 should definitely be fine for the last hub. Yeah. Otherwise, there's a fair bit of downtime in this level, so if there's any donations or messages to say, this would be a good time.
Alright, I have a few. From earlier, $22 from 22K, $80 from Dari65, and $25 from Grill Pilla. Thanks for the donations.
Thank you. Yeah, so the other thing Nina can do is grapple onto these gargoyles. Casually, Nina's grapple is a bit infamous for not really functioning. As long as you go completely neutral and only like hold X and circle and like don't do anything else, it works like 100% of the time. But I think it's completely understandable that a casual player might not know that and find this section with her pretty aggravating as a result. But if any of you struggled with that as a kid, that is how you make this consistent. Alright, I'm going to grab this mask for safety just because it is easy to get hit a lot in the upcoming section. Case in point. A little side note, I love how like all the artwork in this game is like 2D, like hand-drawn artwork. But it really sets it apart from like older Crash games where stuff is like a bit more 3D. And I think it gives the game a lot of charm.
I think the aesthetic of this game really does like paint a really good picture. But
before you can do that, I'm going to go for a jump here that is really awful and only should ever be done as a last resort, but I'm going to try and show it off in a marathon. See if I get it. I was not even close. Okay. Yeah, so you can get what's called, like, Nina's not supposed to be able to double jump, but after a grapple, there's like a small window where if you're just like pressing X, she can get a double jump, and like you can use the momentum from that to launch to the other side of the level. And if you time it so that you don't get like auto-killed by the fall damage, it saves like I think 10 seconds or something, but it loses a lot of time to fail. So you only ever do it as a last resort. But yeah, I'm not going to go for it again, so continue with what you were saying, ABA.
I was just going to say that the overall aesthetic of this game really does like paint a pretty good picture of the Crash series as a whole. And, you know, we had a great return to form with the Insane Trilogy and CTR Nitro Fueled and Crash 4. But, you know, in a lot of ways, this feels like a really like solid Crash game, whereas Crash of the Titans that came after kind of took Crash in a weird direction.
Yeah. Which door is supposed to, I think it's this one. It's just taking a while. Let me pause it and see if that fixes anything. There we go. I think it was because I died. That door just took longer. All right, so there's a skip here that I have no idea how to do, but I could try it. I was nowhere close. I was way too far back. But you can skip the cutscene here, and then it also stops the bus from chasing you. That was found by Rijiku a few months ago, and I still don't know how to do it. So this is the other hardest chase section in any Crash game.
This is mainly hard because Nina doesn't really have any sort of slide or movement tech.
Yeah, and if you slow down at any point, the bus just catches up to you immediately. So I'm going to immediately death abuse here. Because of how much stuff gets left behind in that bus chase, and because of all the ants, I'm just going to skip fighting coming up here. When I reach the end of the level, if I don't death abuse there to deload everything that was before that, the game has a very, very high chance of crashing on PS2. So that's just like a fail-safe to make sure it doesn't happen. Alright, so that is Rooftop Rampage, and before we finish the Academy of Evil, we have a small section where we have to play as Cortex. This is the longest bit of the run where we play as just Cortex, and it'll be a perfect snapshot to just how slow this dude is. Yeah, so I'm actually going to wait out this cycle once. It gives the chance for the other side of the room to load. If I were to move any sooner, then I would actually lose time after trying to leave the room, as weird as that sounds. Alright, so this is the second to last boss fight in the game, and we actually do have to fight her in order to leave this hub. But yeah, this is the headmistress of the Academy, Madame Amberly.
I see you found employment as a barber.
Yeah, so casually, this is a very difficult fight, but there's a pretty cool strat to make it pretty simple in the run. I'm just going to stand here. So how's everybody doing? Yeah, so if you just like stand in a corner of one of the pipes and just don't move, Amberly's like AI breaks and she just attacks the same pipe over and over. And it just completely trivializes this fight.
Name a more iconic duo. Crash Bandicoot boss fights where you have to absolutely just stand still and it working.
Pretty iconic duo. Alright, we're good. I have had instances in the past where I was like frequently somehow messing up the positioning in this fight and like not getting her to lock onto the one pipe. But once she does stand in place, you're good as long as you don't move again. Alright. Alright, so we just attack the bells one more time. And then we just casually commit murder. And yeah, that was the Academy of Evil. We have one more gem to get here with Crash, and then we are off to the final hub. Also, we're out of ammo.
So does the organist always perform in a pit of acid?
Sure, why not? All right, yeah, I'm gonna wait here. Yeah, that door wasn't loaded in, which means the chunk wasn't loaded. All right, so I can't catch that elevator, so I just have enough time to come over here and grab that life. It's actually technically optimal to do boiler last in this hub because it makes this elevator cycle like not bad. But doing boiler last is the most terrifying thing on the planet, so like nobody does it. It saves like 8 seconds if you do everything optimally. Yeah. So I was able to hit the trigger to leave without climbing the elevator just by scaling the side of the wall, and just saves a few seconds. And that cutscene we just skipped is Cortex remembering why the evil twins have a vendetta against him. The evil twins are his pet parrots from when he was a kid at the Academy of Evil, and he tested the Evolvo Ray on them and accidentally sent them to the 10th dimension. and that is why they want revenge on him. All right, so again, I'm going to pause here to make this door load faster. And Nina uses her technical prowess to fix the machine by punching it. And I'm going to try and get a cutscene skip here by holding down and mashing jump when the screen turns white.
2 new dimensions, but we ran out of time.
Okay. Okay, we're good. So you're supposed to enter a cutscene immediately when you enter this part, but if you jump out of the cutscene, you can walk around the trigger. I have not been good at getting that recently, so I'm glad I got it there. Also, I could have just paused for that door, but I chose not to because this song is great, and I just wanted to listen to it, because this is the only time we hear it.
There was a nice little fourth wall break by Cortex saying, you know, it was supposed to be a certain amount of dimensions, but we ran out of time.
Yeah.
Which is...
Yeah, this entire last hub, I think, was made in 1 month. So there's a lot of reused assets and reused level concepts, but the last level is so impressive for how short of a time they had to make it. But yeah, so we show up in the 10th dimension, and Crash's evil counterpart just immediately takes Nina, who might be Cortex's daughter. It's inconclusive. But yeah, we're gonna do the exact same thing we did before on Slip Slide. So this is Rock Slide Rumble. For one, it has one of the best songs in the game. Most people would probably tell you it's the best song in the game, and I can't even blame them. It's really good. But also, this is probably the easiest level in the run, so naturally it always goes wrong for me. It's a level that conceptually, like execution-wise, really is not difficult, but it just has such a high volume of things that just happen. Like the placement of these ants or how fast Evil Crash moves sometimes can just like screw with you. And in contrast to Slip Slide, where there were no gems in any of these side tunnels, except for one, every single gem is in a side tunnel. Also, just gonna do a 360 here, just because you have enough time. I'm a little surprised that one worked. I am also a little surprised I didn't hit Evil Crash. I didn't get the jump I wanted there. And that was going really well for once. All right. There we go. Also, the gems in this level are like really front loaded. We already have all 6 of them.
It's just a matter of good movement from this point forward.
Yeah, and not having something just randomly hit you. Sometimes Evil Crash hits that nitro wall. He didn't want to that time. But yeah, it's really not that bad of a level, but I very frequently have at least one thing go wrong in it. Alright, so next up is the central hub of Twinsanity Island, which is the name of this area. There is a bunch of gems with puzzles that we're supposed to do, and we're going to bypass pretty much all of them. Yeah, but basically the 10th dimension is just a twisted version of the 3rd dimension, which is the dimension that we live in. So I did some sequence breaking there to get on this tree, and this lets me grab this gem without doing the puzzle with the cannon. This gem, you're supposed to launch that ball into the nitros, but we could just do this. And likewise, we can just grab this gem and immediately death abuse, so we can go back to the start of the hub. Alright, so this puzzle right here, gaze in glory at this puzzle. This is the worst, most difficult, awful puzzle ever. It is just terrible. I don't want to do it. So I'm just going to do that. My word of advice to anybody trying to casually 100% in this game, just do that. The puzzle's not worth it. The first time I ever actually did that puzzle as intended, I think it took me 30 minutes. It's awful. So naturally, in bingo runs of this game, one of the goals is doing that puzzle glitchless. That's not what I wanted to happen. All right, we're going to go back around. So I'm going to hit a cutscene here because there's just no way to avoid it. That saves time.
There they are. Let her go. Take me instead.
This is the first game where Cortex's voice actor is Lex Lang instead of Clancy Brown, and honestly, I think he absolutely nailed it.
They're both great, but Lex Lang just really like drives home the whole like kind of
The humorous side.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that puzzle skip doesn't save a huge amount of time, but it's still worth going for. But that puzzle is significantly easier than the other one that I skipped. And then this is the only gem in this hub that isn't a puzzle, it's just kind of there. Alright, so the next level is Bandicoot Pursuit, and it is another escort mission level, so naturally we're just not going to escort anybody, ideally. It is actually possible to accidentally trigger the escort mission in the second phase, and I'm just going to hopefully not do that. Yeah, so I long jump here to dodge that checkpoint. Hitting that checkpoint is what triggers the chase. And this time we would be escorting... Oh, I just missed entirely. The movement here is really tricky because the level geometry is very jagged. But yeah, this time Cortex is being chased by Evil Crash, or at least that's the idea. On the PAL version, Evil Crash's AI is broken, so he kind of just spins in circles. Which I kind of want to show off, but I also don't want to because it loses so much time.
How much would it lose to do the intended route?
A lot. Like, I don't know if it's a minute, but it's definitely like more than 30 seconds. It might be over a minute. I've never really timed it. It's kind of just like, well, that run died. Yeah, so this one is the only one that really has a chance of being hit. I need to like just jump at like this specific spot to make sure the trigger doesn't start, and then I need to not go too far on this bridge. And I think we're good. I'm gonna play it a little safe, but we should be fine. If the chase had started at this point, Cortex would have died by now. So yeah, we're good. And then this chase trigger dodge is very easy. I just go out of bounds here, and then I drop down on these rocks here because sometimes the metal portion just doesn't load properly if you don't. I'm going to be very careful to not die, because if I do, I respawn at the start of the second section and the chase just immediately starts. You can see the border of the level there. Yeah, okay, that's not working. I'm just going to play this safe as well. This is a level that, like just the basic learning of getting through it isn't too hard, but learning to go fast in it is very difficult because of, again, just how jagged the geometry is. We're going to get this purple gem here. This jump never works for me on the first try. Alright, and we have 3 more gems to get before the final level. Alright, so this gem, that outline crate is supposed to be an arrow crate that you trigger on the opposite side of this area. So we're just going to body slam onto this rock if it cooperates. And then we're just going to grab it like that. We're going to hit this exclamation crate here. This again is a puzzle that's really not too bad, but it's still faster to just do this. For both of those like force field gems that I body slammed on, you just want to get like as low height of a body slam as possible. A lot of runners do a maximum height body slam for the first one, but I think minimum height is just most consistent for both. And then I body slammed there to hit the arrow crate, which gave me enough height to get that gem, and we are on to the last level.
Victor and Moritz's stronghold of evil. This is where we wrong the rights and sweep the past under the rug.
One of the most iconic things about Crash is his grin. And like Twinsanity just absolutely nailed that to the nth degree. To this day, I still think it is just the best cheesy Crash Bandicoot smile that's out there.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, so this is Antagony. This level is phenomenal, honestly. It is my favorite level in the entire series. It is actually just incredible that they made this level in the short amount of time that they did. Alright, so this bomb throwing ant right here, his AI is broken on the PAL PS2 version, so if I don't kill him, he just walks forward, and the moment he hits the door that I just walked through, the game crashes. So I just killed him to make sure that didn't happen, and then I died anyway, so you know. So I'll just kill him again. Alright, yeah, he's dead. We're just gonna do this normally. I have 10 lives, so we're definitely good on lives for this level. This is also a level where if you game over, you go back to the start, but that really shouldn't be a threat at this point. Yeah, so you're supposed to break all of these light bulbs to make these force fields go down, but you can just jump over them. Likewise. That was really weird. Something I lightly alluded to but never really outright stated is that with long jumping in this game, the mechanics of the long jump can also translate to a slide jump. So if I do a slide jump and then my next slide jump is at a ledge, it does have the properties of a long jump.
Those moving platforms from earlier, are those on predictable cycles?
They should be, yeah. They just start at a specific point. Yeah, and then these platforms always trigger in the order of red, green, blue, yellow. Alright, so for this ant fight, I need to kill 4 of the 5 ants to unlock the force field for that button. And body slamming them just kills them immediately. In this next session, I'm going to, again, try to do some sequence breaking. That ant's AI is also broken. That's why he just walked off the edge. But yeah, I hit that ant and then jumped off of him to just do a little bit of a platforming skip. And then I'm just going to like jump across this wall to just skip all of this. And then long jump to get this yellow gem and then just death abuse. You can death abuse or you can just jump back. I don't think there's a huge time disparity between the two. But again, I'm gonna just go along this wall here, and this skips a really big like ant fight. Yeah, that center section down there is like a very, very long ant fight. That actually goes on indefinitely, it's just at some point the force field just unlocks. Alright, so there's a cycle here that I'm gonna try and catch. I can't promise I'll get it. Especially not if he's in the way. Oh, I got it. Oh, I'm so glad I got that. That is not easy.
Just barely.
Just barely. What happened is that I landed on the blue platform just in time to get a long jump off of it. And that let me catch the yellow platform. That was wild. Oh, and then it didn't matter because I fell off anyway. I won in spirit. I'm very happy I got that cycle because that is not easy. Oh, okay. Yeah, so again, using a long jump to just sequence break here, and then just going across the wall to just dodge more platforming. And then I'm going to do some controllable slide jumps here, just like saves a tiny bit of time over just like storing a long jump in the corner. Controllable slide jumps look really terrifying, but honestly, they're not too bad once you get used to them, and of course I didn't get a long jump there. This is unfortunately a pretty bad part to lose time in the level. It's always like pretty big time loss when it happens. Yeah, the problem is that like most of the times these rooms like open with a checkpoint, but in this one, the checkpoint's like before the room. So it's like a bigger time loss as a result. Try that again.
There's also just like so much risk associated with like just jumping along the edges.
Yeah. I guess something I even failed to mention right there with that flop, the reason I spin when I land is that it stops that flop from happening, and I just mistimed it there. But yeah, honestly, like as far as like top runners in this game go, I'm probably the worst at antagony. Like I think the best antagony time is like an 8.2x or 1x by the record holder Joester, and my best is like an 8.4x. So I definitely am pretty weak at this level compared to other top runners. Again, a long jump here. See if I can get something here. I did not. So there's a thing called ball glitch where if the game lags on the same frame that the ball goes into the socket, it just won't, but it will still count as if it went in, and then I could use that ball to like just skip one of the puzzles here. But I didn't get it. But thankfully the trigger for the sockets is well below the floor, so I can just launch them below like that. Yeah, if you get ball glitch, it's essentially random, and it's more common on PS2, but when you get it, it saves like 5 or 6 seconds. And I think the 100% record actually does have it. And we have one more cutscene skip coming up here. So I'm going out of bounds here. I'm going to wait for this door to open and stand right here. I'm going to long jump onto the door, and that skips a cutscene that has a cameo featuring Spyro the Dragon. So sorry to any Spyro fans watching, but that cutscene is unfortunately quite long. I got a super slide there. When the game lags, sometimes you just get like way more distance on your slide. Again, more frequent on PS2 because PS2 just lags more. All right, I'm going to pause here to give the level time to load. I have 93% at this point, which means I have every gem, but I will just confirm right there. That is all 96 of them. So all we have left is the final boss. So this boss has 3 phases to it, and the first one is going to be played as Nina. So in this section, I just have to destroy these like energy pillars. That's not a great start to this fight. I'm going to try very hard not to die, because I think I get sent fairly far back if I do. We should be safe now. Thankfully, your masks replenish on every like phase. So in the next phase, I'm gonna play as Cortex, and I'll just start with a mask again, so I don't have to worry about not getting hit for the remainder of the fight.
Is there one particular phase of this boss fight that you find the most challenging?
Not really.
Okay.
Like probably the Nina section, just because sometimes you don't get like your double jumps out, and sometimes you like flop. But overall, it's not really a difficult fight.
I feel like both the Cortexes just move so slowly.
Yeah, they definitely do not have the mobility that Crash has. Oh, I should move out of the way. Yep, and then this is just a blind spot, so I can just like wildly fire here, and they can't hit me. All right, and the last phase of this fight, we pilot the Mecha Bandicoot, which would be a fantastic bookend if we had actually done the first boss fight. The Mecha Bandicoot is part of the first boss fight. And time will be coming up when I land the last of these 4 hits. I missed the early hit, but we should be good. 3, oh, nope, 3, and okay, one more time. Time. Final time was 1:28:02, which, considering the parts where I had to load backup saves or like just lost a lot of time, I would say that's very good for a marathon. Like, this is just a very volatile game overall. So like sometimes you'll get a run that's like really good, and then sometimes you'll get runs that lose upwards of 20 minutes. But it is a really cool category. It's a really awesome game. Even for all of its faults, this is my favorite Crash Bandicoot game, so I'm really glad I got to show it off in pace. But yeah, that was Crash Twinsanity 100%. Thank you to GSA for having me once again and letting me show off this awesome run. Thank you to 8VA for providing commentary. And shout outs to my entire Twitch community and even my growing YouTube community. You guys are awesome and are the reason I'm able to do any of this full time the way I do. You guys are the best, really. If we got time, I'd like to let this ending cutscene play out just because it's pretty funny. But yeah, the evil twins get eaten very gruesomely, and that is the last we ever see of them.
You know, Crash, for all these years I've been wrong about you.
This is probably my favorite Crash series cutscene.
Oh yeah. Also, it's playing slower because this is the PAL version of the game, so it's playing at 50 FPS.
But I've learned something from all of this. I've learned that you can't run away from your mistakes, but you can bury them. I never want to see your ridiculous face again. Where am I? What is this?
As if you didn't hear Cortex scream enough in this game.
Yeah, that was Crash Twinsanity. Be sure to stick around for Crash Team Racing. That is also a pretty awesome run. But yeah, thanks for having me.